So Good Shepherd Services is a youth development, family services, and education organization. Each year we work with more than 20,000 vulnerable children, youth, and families. What we do, we operate more than 70 programs in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Manhattan, which include community-based youth development, education, and family service programs. We have multiple pathways to graduation, which will help young people obtain either their GEDs or their high school diploma. We have group homes for adolescents. We have a foster care and adoption services in the Bronx. And we do transitional and supportive housing, which is what I am here to talk to you guys about. How we work, we are a strengths-based organization. We provide wraparound services in each one of our programs. We have a huge commitment to community. And we work in partnerships and shared resources. So the Chelsea Foyer is actually a great example of working in partnerships. We partnered up with Common Ground to create this transitional living program for young people. We'll talk a little bit more about that right now, the Chelsea Foyer program overview. We opened in 2004. We opened the program because we were already doing a lot of work with foster care kids in both our adolescent group home programs and our family foster care programs. And we realized that a lot of our young people were leaving care without permanent housing, without that support that they were going to need to move on. We've already talked about all the options that they really didn't have after leaving foster care. And so we were approached by Common Ground communities because they also wanted to find out what we could do to provide services for this population. And there the idea of the Chelsea Foyer was born. We found out about Foyer programs based out of the UK, went over there, visited, studied, learned about their model, came back, and then sort of tailored it to something that we could do here in New York City. What we do is we provide 40 young people ages 18 to 25 with supportive transitional housing. Now, we don't only provide services for young people aging out of foster care, we also provide services for young people who come to us from the homeless shelter system, whether it's the adult shelter system or the young adult shelter system, or young people who have spent some time couch surfing. So we do have a mixed population in our building. The residents participate in a personalized program of services for up to 24 months. So unlike some of the other supportive housing programs, which are quote-unquote permanent or up until 26, we really do 2 years of services. Now, because of our mixed populations, for example, our New York 3 young people can stay longer, but we still try to gear our program as much as possible to having them stay only for 2 years so that they don't get too comfortable and so that we can open up beds for other young people to come along. And then everything that we do is infused with the Good Shepherd Services signature strength-based youth development practices, and now also with the sanctuary model of trauma-informed care. Okay, so what we have at the Chelsea Foyer, I mean, we are extremely lucky, and when I talk to other programs, they get very jealous about our very, very rich staffing pattern. So I'm going to talk really quick about it because we have 40 young people, and we have a staff of about 15, which means that we have a lot of on-site support. So the program consists of a program manager, and a program director, and a program manager, and an RHY coordinator. That's the 3 sort of tiered management system that we have for our program. We have 2 case managers, 5 full-time independent living counselors, and 3 per diem independent living counselors. So the case managers really take care of all the big ticket items, all the referrals, all the equipping the young people with the resources in the community, making sure that they're in tune with housing, education, employment, medical, health, legal services. And the independent living counselors are really their on-site army. They're the ones that are there morning, evening, night. They're the ones that are going to help a young person go grocery shopping. If they don't know how to do that, we'll help them learn how to clean their room, do their laundry, create a budget. They're the ones that are focusing every single day on those skills that they're going to need to learn when they move out of the program. We have 2 full-time Good Shepherd volunteers, which are similar to AmeriCorps volunteers who are with us for an entire year, and they practically work for free. They're not exactly free, but they're very inexpensive. One of them, it's a great model. One of them is actually a full-time independent living counselor, so she helps out with the young people, making sure that they're learning their skills. And the other one is our alumni services coordinator. So she's the one that helps us keep in touch with our young people once they leave the program. We also have an MSW intern every year from the Columbia School of Social Work from the Workplace Center, and she works as our employment specialist. So we're able to make sure that each young person who's not employed meets with somebody consistently to help them on that process towards employment. And then, of course, we have our office manager, who also serves as our quote-unquote rent collector. We don't call it rent, though. We call it program fees, and we'll talk about that in a minute, too. So what are the components of the Chelsea Foyer? First of all, we have a very rigorous application process, a very complicated referral stream, because we have very different funding sources, and every funding source wants to be able to refer only their young people to our program. But once they get through the referral process, there is a rigorous application process, and that's because this is how we gauge motivation. Being in our program isn't about, whether you're working or not, or it's about whether you're motivated. If you're motivated enough to go through the application process and the interview process, then you're motivated enough to be in our program. We also do contracts and action planning. So unlike a lot of the other supportive housing programs, we do not sign leases with our young people. We are the tenant in the building that Common Ground provides for us, and they sign a contract to be in our program. The contract basically outlines all of their rights and responsibilities as a resident, and all of our expectations, our rules, and what they're supposed to do while they're in the program. The action plan is basically our goal-setting system. We have an action plan system. When they first move in, within their first 30 days, they create an action plan for the next 4 months. And every 4 months after that, we review that action plan, and we find out which of their goals they were able to accomplish in the previous 4 months, and what are the new goals they want to set for themselves in the next 4 months. We have a very limited structure, but very high expectations. What I tell every young person when I do the new resident orientation with them is, this program is a whole lot of freedom, but it's also a lot of responsibility. And what young people sometimes fail to see is that, yeah, when you're out in the real world, you have a lot of freedom, right? You can come and go as you please, you can do whatever you want, but guess what? You still have to pay your rent and your utility bills, and that's responsibility. For some young people, especially those coming from foster care, the freedom in the beginning is amazing. Oh my God, nobody's telling me what time to go to sleep, nobody's telling me what time to wake up, nobody's telling me what time to eat. But then all of a sudden, somebody's telling you when you have to pay your rent, and that sort of becomes really overwhelming, being able to balance both things. We have a lot of on-site support services. I sort of talked about that really quickly. And then our program fee, which is really a sliding scale based on income. So instead of charging rent for our young people, we charge program fees. It's 30% of a young person's monthly income. The bare minimum is $100 if they're unemployed or if they're making so little, and then anywhere up from that. What we do with that program fee is that we set it aside in a trust, in a bank account in their name, and so that when they leave our program, whether it's in a year or in 2 years, where they live in a good note or a not so good note, they get all of that money back. So on one end, it's an enforced savings account where we're forcing them to save through us. But on the other end, we're teaching them what it's like to have to pay rent. We're teaching them what it's like to have to take out that percentage of your check in order to live somewhere, because they're never going to live anywhere for free. And our culture is really focused on workforce development. So that's probably the conversation that is had with young people every time any staff person has any interaction with them. Where are you working? Where are you looking for work? What are you doing about employment? It is literally the conversation that happens every single day. If a young person doesn't have somebody at least once a day ask them where they're working, then they're not seeing staff, because really that's what we talk about on a daily basis. So the on-site support that we have, similar to all other programs, case management, life skills development, housing and aftercare services. We provide housing workshops, because we also talk about discharge planning from day one. The day that they move in, they know what day they're going to move out, and from day one, we're talking about where are you going. So that means starting to fill out lottery applications literally the first week that they're there. Mitchell-Lama, if there's other supportive programs that they can join, anything that they can do, it starts happening literally on day one. Workforce development we talked about, and community building. Just like in Lantern Group, everything that we do is centered around community. So we offer workshops on a nightly basis, not just to offer them life skills, but to give them that sense of community so that young people have the ability to interact with each other, to have activities with each other, to get to know the staff, and therefore they learn a lot from each other. The fact that we have this mixed population really works out to our benefit. Because what we've learned throughout the years is that the foster care kids learn from the homeless kids how to be independent. They learn that they have to do things for themselves, that they can't always go and expect staff to fix their problems. And actually, the homeless kids learn that it is okay to ask for help, that it is okay to go up to a staff and say, you know what, I'm really having trouble with this, can you please help me out? So they really encourage each other to move beyond their limitations. So now we're gonna get to the part that I really wanna talk about. So what we found out at the Foyer very quickly, probably within the first year of us opening, is that we really, really needed to know a lot about our program, and we needed to know it in a very, very serious, sort of data-informed way. In the beginning, all the information we were keeping on our young people were like many programs keep it, right? An Excel spreadsheet. You have this really fancy Excel spreadsheet where you put everything you need to know about your resident, and then how do you go back and analyze all that? So we really figured out that we needed to know who we were serving, you know, all the types of characteristics of the young people that were coming in. We needed to find out how the program was doing on a daily basis because we needed to inform our practice. So intuitively, we thought that this population was doing well, that population was not doing so well, this many were working, but we really needed to see that sort of in numbers form. We also needed a method to track program fees and participation and savings. And because we have such a complicated funding stream, we have 5 government grants and about 5 private foundations, we needed to be able to produce reports for them. And we needed to be able to find a way to keep that all together. So we decided to engage in this very, very complex evaluation process. We have a department in our agency called the Program Evaluation and Planning Department, which really helps us through all of this. So everything we do is really, it begins with our mission, which is to surround at-risk New York City youth and their families with a web of supports that promote a safe passage to self-sufficiency. So we assess positive impact by focusing on 3 core youth development outcomes: safety, belonging, and skill building. So everything that we do is really based out of those 3 components. So to assist with these efforts, we have the centralized Program Evaluation and Planning Department, which partners with us in the program, with the staff, to really use data and evidence-based practices to strengthen the services that we provide. So what we do is, in all programs, we implement a performance management plan that includes a logic model, and you'll see what that logic model looks like in the next slide. Where we define inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes. Basically, everything that we do with the young people gets defined in a matrix. We track data on participant characteristics, services, and outcomes. And everything we do goes into our efforts to outcome database system. So we do it all electronically. Absolutely every person in the program who has any contact with a young person records that contact into a very complex database system that will then be able to spit out for us any question that we have. One day we might have a question about, is this population doing well in this particular area? And we can go right in and get that information. We incorporate standardized tools for assessments and data collection. So when young people first move into the program, there's a whole slew of assessments that they take, and then they take it again 1 year after being in the program, and then they take it again right before they leave, and then we're able to see if there's been a change and a growth with them while they were in the program. And then what we do with that is we convene the participants and the staffs in forums to review the results and learn from the data. So it's not just something that, you know, me as a program director and Denise as my supervisor and the PEP department do together. This is something that the residents and the staff look at literally on a monthly basis. So for example, this is the logic model. So it's a very, very complex grid. It basically shows you all the way on this side, you know, who the agency is and what we put into the program. And the activities is what do we do on a day-to-day basis with our young people. And then we start looking at outputs, short-term, intermediate, and long-term outcomes of how we're doing. And really the things that we're looking at is safety, engagement, money management, housing, employment, education, connections, belonging. So all the things, you know, so many different areas that we want to make sure that we're capturing and we're finding out how our young people are doing. So what we do is we literally display this information in our community area where the young people are. So every single month, we chart our data up on the boards, and young people can see how their participants are doing in education, in employment, in program fees, in workshop attendance, and they will be able to say, oh, I fit into this piece of the pie. And we talk about it on a constant basis so they know how the community is doing as a whole. What we also do is for each case manager and each independent living counselor, we literally graph the progress of their caseload so that they know how they're doing compared to what our outcome goals are. So each case manager will see 75% of their young people are working, 30% of their young people are going to workshops, 10% are enrolled in education. So they understand what their work on a day-to-day basis, how that is impacting the program as a whole. And then monthly dashboards is basically what we do is we produce a form every month that shows how the program is doing as a whole. So every month we know what percentage of them were employed, what percentage were enrolled in education, how many were meeting with their case managers. And we do this at time of program, at time of discharge, and once they become alumni. And the last thing I have is our outcomes progress report. This comes out on a quarterly basis, and this ties directly with our logic model. So every goal that we have set for ourselves on our logic model, we get a report on a quarterly basis so that we can see exactly how we're doing in each one of those areas. And that's when we start deciding what changes need to happen. For example, we struggle with education tremendously. I'm sure a lot of the other programs will do too. Because if a young person has to work full time to pay for their rent, they don't exactly have time to go to school too. So we have had to figure out some initiatives in our program based on the very low percentage of young people in our program who are enrolled in education. So we use this, we talk about data literally every time we get together as a staff, every time we get together with the young people so that we have an idea of how the program is doing.